ونستعين به ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وخليله بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وجاهد في الله حق الجهاد حتى أتاه اليقين فصلوات ربي وسلامه عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تمسك بسنته واكتفى بهديه بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كلام الله تعالى وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار أجارني الله وإياكم من النار. ثم أما بعد. We live in a time where lack of appreciation and forgetfulness, or you can say denial, has overcome many hearts. Acts of kindness that are not appreciated, or good deeds that are easily forgotten. There is something that humanity nowadays lacks, and that is wafa, loyalty. It's a scarce commodity in our days. Very few live up to it. Very few live up to being loyal. For if you observe the society or the community, all the people that we live around and with, you will find that many people, they speak a lot. They make promises, but they are not loyal to these promises. They make agreements, and they are not loyal to these agreements. You see people that have been done good by. Someone done good by an individual. They've been done good by. But then in return, they don't show goodness. Why? Because there's a lack of loyalty that has well and truly become scarce. One of the reasons is the word loyalty is unknown. People don't know what loyalty means. They don't know how to define loyalty. They probably can define it for you according to a movie or something that they've read in a book. But what does loyalty well and truly mean? Not at least. First and foremost, Islamically. What does it mean, loyalty? Loyalty is to fulfill your obligations completely. Your obligations and everything that you're obliged to do, your responsibilities, without leaving anything out. This includes moral obligations like showing respect, appreciation, and gratitude. And then you have the material obligations like paying back people's rights without delay, without excuses and deceits. Loyalty is very closely related, if you'd like to say, to honesty and fairness. And it's the total opposite of betrayal. And betrayal, on that note, is very closely related to lying and injustice and deceit. When you're loyal, you're truthful in your words and your action. And when you have deceit, you usually lie. You usually lie and show injustice through speech and action. The best example of loyalty is the example of Allah Azza wa Jal as He describes Himself. وَمَنْ أَوْفَى بِعَهْدِهِ مِنَ اللَّهِ. And who is more faithful, truthful and loyal to His covenant than Allah Azza wa Jal? قُلْ أَتَّخَذْتُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ عَهْدًا فَلَنْ يُخْلِفَ اللَّهُ عَهْدًا. Say, have you taken a covenant, a promise, an oath with Allah Azza wa Jal? For verily Allah will never break His covenant, never break His promise. This is the loyalty of Allah Azza wa Jal. And from His creation, the loyalty of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Examples that are many. Examples that are many from the beginning of the seerah of the Prophet to the end of it. It's full of loyalty, full of wafa to his obligations, his moral obligations, and his moral obligations and his material obligations, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Loyalty is of levels. There's that which is obligatory, and that is that you're loyal to those who are loyal to you, and not to show deceit and betrayal to those that are truthful, honest to you. And you have the loyalty that is even better than that. It's that you're loyal to those that are not loyal to you. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, if a person insults you and taunts you with something that they know about you, then you in return do not taunt them with something you know about them, for the burden of that sin is upon them. Friends, 20 years, love, affection, and connection, brothers, if you'd like to say, many years, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Then they go through a rough patch, a dispute, and then they show their true love. Then they show their true loyalty to each other. How? By exposing one another's secrets, by insulting them with things that they don't like. They know their weak points, they know their weaknesses, so they use it against them. This is not loyalty. The loyal one withholds, even against the one that wants to harm. Your enemy, he's now no longer your friend. He wants to harm you, and he knows about you what others don't, so he starts to spread. And you, in return, know about him what others don't, but you choose to withhold. That, my brothers, is loyalty. Then you have the loyalty that goes beyond this world, and that is the loyalty that continues after death. That continues after death. You love someone, you have a connection with someone, whether male or female. The Prophet ﷺ was loyal to Khadija well and truly after she passed away. Well and truly after she passed away, he used to mention her in many instances, and he would give from the meat to her friends in remembrance of her, in loyalty to her, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And loyalty has many different types, or you can say scenarios. One of them is to be loyal by upholding your promises and fulfilling your contracts. Al-wafa'u bil-wa'di wal-ahdi. These two are from loyalty. Is that if you promise someone, you stick to your promise. If you say something, you stick to your word. If you make a contract between you and someone, you are loyal to that contract, so as long as there is no religious obligation to break it. Allah Azza wa Jal orders in the Quran, وَأَوْفُوا بِعَهْدِ اللَّهِ إِذَا عَاهَدْتُمْ, and fulfill the covenant of Allah when you have made a covenant. When you make a promise, an oath by the name of Allah, then you must fulfill that oath. Allah also says in the Quran, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَوْفُوا بِالْعُقُودِ. O you who have believed, fulfill all contracts. This is referring to the contract that you make between you and Allah Azza wa Jal to witness pilgrimage, Hajj, and worship and acts of worship. But this can also refer to every contract, promise that is made. أَوْفُوا بِالْعُقُودِ. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam warns and cautions those that betray their promises and those that do not uphold and go through their contracts and agreements. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, "La deena liman la ahda lah." Be careful. Be careful and cautious and take heed. La deena liman la ahda lah. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, there is no religion for the one who does not fulfill their promises, who is not loyal to their word and their contracts. La deena liman la ahda lah. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam also warns us of the signs of the hypocrite. The signs of the hypocrite are four, or from the signs of the hypocrite are four. If you have these in you, these traits or these characteristics, then this is pure hypocrisy. And if you have one of them or more, then you have traits of hypocrisy. إِذَا اؤْتُمِنَ خَانَ وَإِذَا حَدَّثَ كَذَبَ وَإِذَا عَاهَدَ غَدَرَ وَإِذَا خَاصَمَ فَجَرَ. That when he speaks, he lies. And when he makes a promise, he breaks it. And when he argues, he behaves in an abusive manner. I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to preserve us from these evil traits. From the promises that must be upheld is fulfilling the rights of others. This is from the loyalty. This is from the meanings and the definitions of loyalty, is that you fulfill the rights of others. And I want to mention, namely, specifically, people's wages, people's debts. You've borrowed money, returning it is loyalty. Someone worked for you, you paid them their right. This is loyalty. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam ordered, أعطوا الأجير أجره قبل أن يجف عرقه. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, give the worker or the laborer his wages before his sweat dries, emphasizing the importance of hastening and hurrying to giving your laborer or your worker their rights. I don't want to go into the culture that we live in today, the society that we live in today, especially when it comes to this, giving people their rights. I want to give you the opposite, and then you can understand. If you have the opposite, then you understand. I want to give you the better picture of what it looks like to give someone their due right. And this, again, is from loyalty. The hadith of the three men that were in the cave. I'm not sure, most likely you've come across it. They took refuge in a cave, and then a boulder closed in on them and they could not leave. So they said, let's turn to Allah Azza wa Jal with a deed that we done in sincerity, so that maybe Allah Azza wa Jal will save us from this calamity of ours. They're in a cave and they're locked in, and God knows what they have of provision. If it lasts, how long will it last for? And so on and so forth. There's only one way out, and that is the way of Allah Azza wa Jal. So they said, let's beseech Allah, seek Him. He will give us a way out. One of these men turned to Allah Azza wa Jal in supplication, and he said, oh Allah, I had a laborer. He worked for him. I had a laborer and paid them, or I had laborers and I paid them their wages. One of these laborers went before I paid him. So I took this money and I invested it for him. I invested this money of his wages, whatever it may be, until it became vast wealth. This wealth of his became vast. A period of time went by. This wealth has now become multiples of what it originally was. Valleys of cattle and valleys of sheep, and there were servants in between them also. So this person came back, this laborer, and he said to him, I have wages with you, my money that you owe me. He said to him, yes, you do. He said, I want my right. He said, you know, all this wealth before you, all these livestock and all these servants before you, they're yours. Are you mocking me? Imagine you work for $1,000 and then you go for X amount of months, weeks, whatever it may be. Then you come back to the person you worked with and you said to him, You owe me a week's work. And he goes, yeah, I do. You know this house? It's yours. Are you mocking me? Are you mocking me? He said, no, I'm not mocking you. All that cattle you see, all these servants you see, they're all yours. All this wealth, it's yours. So he took it. Every last penny of it. Almost without a thank you. He said, oh Allah, if this was for you and done sincerely for your sake, save us. And guess what? Allah Azza wa Jal is the one that saves, and He saved them. When it comes to debts, that's wages. But you borrowed someone's money. Not this week, next week, I promise you. Wallah, not just a few more days. Wallah, I'll borrow, could you have $500 and Wallah, I'll give it to you in X amount of time. But you are using the word of Allah without pure intention. You say, in the name of Allah, next week, in the name of Allah, in a month, in the name of Allah, I will return it. But you're deceitful, you're lying, and you're only using the name of Allah Azza wa Jal to deceive the other person that believed you, that trusted you, and that gave you and helped you and done good by you. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, Man akhadha amwal al-nas yuridu ada'aha adda Allahu an. Whoever takes and borrows money of people because they're in need, and this is fine. If you're in need and you borrow money, it's fine. If you take it truly and sincerely with the intention to return it to its owner, Allah will aid you and assist you to return it. However, وَمَنْ أَخَذَ يُرِيدُ إِتْلَافَهَا أَتْلَفَهُ اللَّهُ. Whoever takes it deceitfully, without the pure intention of returning it, and there are many people like this, and take heed of this, then Allah has promised you with destruction in this world and the next. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. We said loyalty is trustworthiness. And the opposite of this is betrayal. This implies to everything you're entrusted with. So I can summarize it because there are many scenarios. Everything you're entrusted with. One, the right of Allah. Everything that you're obliged to do in the name of Allah, and you do it, that's loyalty. You don't do it, that's betrayal. Your prayers, your acts of worship, your financial obligations, zakat and so on and so forth, you do it, then this is loyalty. And then you have the rights of others, the rights of humans. And there are many examples of such and obligations. Your obligation towards your family, your wife and your children. You do that which you can, and you try your hardest, and you attend what you need to, and you attend the obligations and the responsibilities that you have towards your wife and your children in your household. This is loyalty. If you're slack, hanging out at the cafe whilst you have children at home, are waiting for you to feed them, and then them turning to another source of income because of your lack of responsibility, this is betrayal. And you will be judged about this on the day of judgment. I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to give us from the characteristics of loyalty and to protect us from the characteristics and the traits of betrayal. إنه ولي ذلك والقادر عليه أقول ما تسمعون وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه فيا فوز المستغفرين. الحمد لله وكفى ولا عدوان إلا على من ظلم وبغى والصلاة والسلام على المبعوث المصطفى صلوات ربي وسلامه عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تمسك بسنته واكتفى بهديه بإحسان إلى يوم الدين ثم أما بعد. One of the greatest forms of trust and loyalty that is broken nowadays, and I singled this out on purpose so that we can give it our attention. Because it's easy to pay attention to material types of loyalty, contracts and promises and money. But this type of loyalty and promise and trustworthiness may be overseen or not paid attention to, or in good thought, may be negligible. So someone may not know that this is wrong or from the betrayal. And that is the secrets that people share with one another. Those who are trustworthy withhold secrets. If I give you a secret, then you withhold it. It's not from loyalty, but from betrayal, that a person, when given a secret, spoken to in confidence, then goes and spreads what was just mentioned in confidence. This is not from the characteristics of the believers. This is not from the characteristics and the traits of those that are loyal. You're loyal, and someone entrusts you with a word, then it's a right upon you before Allah Azza wa Jal that you safeguard this secret. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or reported on the authority of Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu, he said, إِنَّمَا يَتَجَالَسُ الْمُتَجَالِسَانِ بِأَمَانَةِ اللَّهِ. That when two sit down and speak in confidence and conversate, it is with the trust of Allah. فَلَا يَحِلُّ لِأَحَدِهِمَا أَنْ يَفْشِيَ عَلَى أَخِيهِ مَا يَكْرَهُ. It's not allowed for you. Better yet, it is unlawful that one of you disclose the information or disclose something that the other dislikes. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, إِذَا حَدَّثَ الرَّجُلُ أَخَاهُ ثُمَّ الْتَفَتْ فَهِيَ أَمَانَةٌ. If a person speaks to you, let's say, and then as he's speaking to you, he looks around, make sure there's no one. This is in confidence. This now has become a conversation of privacy. And there are many examples to this. Yeah, how you going, my brother? Is there anyone next to you? No, there's no one. And he's got his whole family next to him. You're speaking in the confidence that Allah Azza wa Jal has obligated between you. You're obligated to stand to this confidence and this privacy between you that Allah Azza wa Jal has put. Or else society will crumble. Imagine there's no loyalty when it comes to such things. Imagine there's no, you don't have to imagine, it's happening. Look around you. If there's no loyalty when it comes to privacy and secrets, when there's no loyalty to wages and what happens, no loyalty to debts and what happens, and the list goes on. Loyalty is a commodity that's scarce. Loyalty is something that we need to bring back. Loyalty is something that we need to face Allah Azza wa Jal with and turn to Him in worship. Be loyal for the sake of Allah. Be loyal for the sake of Allah as an act of worship. For loyalty has become a scarce commodity. I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to forgive us and to safeguard us and to protect us. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل